Okay, in this video, I want to demonstrate how to create box mock-ups. I'm going to use two different approaches. The image that you see on the left here was produced by using the 3D grid, and the one on the right was produced by using the Effect 3D Extrude and Bevel. There's other ways that you could do this, but these two ways I think are the most fun and really the easiest. There's just a few things that you need to know in order to do both of them, and I'm going to go over that stuff in this video. So I'm going to switch gears here, and now I have my Wild Bill start. The first thing that you have to understand is in order to make those boxes, you need symbols. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out a couple of symbols to show you real quickly. Here is the front symbol for the box, and here is the side symbol for the box. Now, what happens with 3D sometimes is the box side can get a little bit wacky. It did in this case. I'm going to show you that in a little while when I actually do the 3D. So what I was forced to do in order to correct that was to change the orientation of the side of the box. To do that, it's actually very simple. All you have to do is double click to get inside the symbol. So I'm double clicking the symbol inside the symbols panel, and now I'm looking at the actual symbol in here. And I can do things like I can rotate it and whatever I want to do. Now I'm not going to do anything to this because obviously this is just a demonstration, but that's basically how you do it. And you'll see in a minute why that happens, or why I have to do that, I should say. Alright, so I don't really need these things right now, but what I do need actually is I do need a panel to work from if I'm going to do the 3D one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here quickly, and I'm just going to drag myself out a panel that's about the size of that, which is right there. And I'm going to move it over a little bit so I can get it out of the way. And I'm going to delete these two. This is what I'm going to work with. The problem is that it's not the right color. I've actually prepared the proper color for this. So I'm going to click on it. That is the proper color that I'm going to use for my 3D box. Okay? So to do this, I select my simple shape. I go up to the Effect menu. I come down to where it says 3D, and I choose Extrude and Bevel. In another video, I'm going to show you how to do the revolve. So here's the Extrude and Bevel. Click on it. I get the Extrude and Bevel dialog box. What I can do is I can choose different positions a number of ways. I can choose it from the drop down here. There's a bunch of different directions that I can place this in. I'll show you more about that in a minute. I can also use the 3D rotations over here, and I can play with them to get my rotation, which I find a little bit difficult to do and probably too time consuming for me. And then you also have this guy right here, which shows you the front surface as being blue, and these are the side surfaces. By manipulating this thing, you can change the orientation of the model. And if you take a look over here as I'm doing this, the numbers are moving. In order to see this thing in 3D, I click on the preview button, and as you can see, automatically I get 3D. So what I want to do is I want to rotate my model around so that it's in this direction, like here, right there, I think is what I'm looking for. All right, and I'm going to set it up about the way I want it, which is something like that. That's pretty good. I mean, you know, the thing that's important to understand is you can just keep maneuvering this thing as much as you want by just clicking and rotating this, or you can choose a custom rotation like that. Okay? So really it's not that difficult to do. It's just a matter of manipulating the thing into the position that you want. I tend to do it this way simply because I like doing it this way, and usually I'm not in any kind of a major rush when I'm doing this, so this takes a little bit longer, but I get a bit more control. Right now this thing is not in the shape of a box, so what I want to do is I want to deal with the extrude depth. And I'm going to take the extrude depth and I'm going to start dragging it up. And as you can see, what happens is it adds a depth to this. I'm probably in around 160. So let's try 160 and click off of it for a second. That's pretty close. I may make it 165. I want it to be, basically square looking. It should look basically square. That's pretty close. Maybe it's 170. And again, you just keep doing this until you hit the point that you want. Okay? I could probably work with that. I'll probably make it 175. I really am looking for a square. Yeah, so I think that's probably pretty good right there. Now, the other thing that you might want to do with this is you may leave it this way, or you may play with the perspective. And personally, I like the perspective. To drag the perspective slider, watch what happens to my box. Slowly, this thing is going to start putting perspective on the box. Can you see it? And you know what? Right now, I think in this particular case, I'm going to leave it set to that perspective right there. I think that's more than enough. I like the look of it. So, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to map some art onto this. That means that I'm going to put something on the surface of my render so that it looks like my box. So I click on map art, and again, what I do is I get knocked into this map art panel, and as you can see, what it's showing me is it's showing me surfaces. There's your one surface. That surface, I think, is the surface in this particular case that I'm going to use for side. And I click on side, and I got the wrong one. Let me go back. That's not the one that I want. Give me a second to render this thing out. That's not the right one. I have a couple of them in there, and this is not the one that I want. Although this will work. You'll see in a second. There, see, so it actually does work. It's not the one that I want, though. So I'm going to come down to side 2. There's side 2. Now, you'll notice that side 2 is a little bit off. So what you would do here is you would just click scale to fit, and it works, but it still hasn't given me exactly what I want. So in that case, I drag it over a little bit. See how I'm dragging it over, fitting it to the side of that mock-up? And at a certain point, I think I went too far with it. Go back a little tiny bit. So in other words, you can manipulate this thing. That looks pretty good, okay? So then the next thing that you want to do here is you have your symbol area and you have your surface area. There are 6 surfaces, obviously, because this is a more or less a rectangular box. So I'm going to go around the surfaces until I find the one that I want. That's the back surface. It's not the one that I want. I'm going to keep going. There is the backside surface. It's not the one that I want. And I'm going to keep going again. There's your bottom surface. That's not the one I want. Then there's your top. That's the surface that I want. That's my front surface right there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come down and I'm going to grab side 2. When I grab side 2, you see what happens? This is what I was telling you about when I rotated this thing. I get this thing happening here. The problem is it sometimes gives me trouble rotating this thing. See, if I rotate this thing, I can make this thing work. But instead of doing this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose side 2, because side 2 has been, or actually, I'm sorry, let me go back here and get my front. This is my front. There we go, my front. So I'm going to bring this thing down and I'm going to see if I can rotate this. See, this is where you run into a problem. It sometimes does this stuff, okay? So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to back out of here, click on none. I'm going to go back to my front surface. Let's go back to surface number 1. There we go. And let's change this. Let me go in and let me put the front over there. There we go. All right, so I have my front there. Now I'm going to go to my surface on the side, and right there. And I'm going to come down and I'm going to choose side 2, because again, like I said, when you click on side 1, you get this, and sometimes it just really is a problem. So what I do to avoid that problem is simply take and make a duplicate of my side, and I change the rotation, and now I've got this thing right, scale to fit. And if I need to, I can just take this thing and I can adjust it until the thing is fitting the box, which I think that does pretty good. And I'm going to hit OK. And now I've basically got my box rendered, but I might not have it the angle I want. Actually, I think I can live with this. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit OK, and I've now rendered my box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my box over here, and that is the first way that I render a box. The second way that I render the box is by utilizing the perspective tool. To do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to drag out a front, and I'm going to drag out a side right there. Okay, so I have my front and I have my side right there. Now these are symbols. How I made these symbols is I basically created my front panel with all the graphics on it, and then I just literally clicked it and dragged it and dropped it right inside. Click, drag, and drop into this, and it will create a new symbol. If I do that, this is sort of what it looks like. I'm going to click and drag it in, and you get the symbols option. The options are basically to name your symbol. I'm not going to do this actually because it's already in there. I'm just showing you how this is done. This will be called like maybe front panel, and then the export type doesn't matter all that much. Movie clip graphic works the same, but I tend to put things as graphic just because I like it that way. So it would be the name of your symbol. Export type is a graphic. Symbol type is a dynamic symbol. I usually make it a dynamic symbol, although you could use a static symbol. I generally choose to dynamic symbol, which means it gives me some flexibility as for sizing. And then I always choose the registration point of the center of it. Okay, so now movie clip and graphic are tags for flash import. There's no difference between these two symbols in Illustrator. So again, I just do it graphic because I do. Okay, I'm going to hit cancel because I already got it in there. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to engage my perspective selection, my perspective grid, sorry. Okay, so I get my perspective grid. Now, what you do here is you have this tool up here. And what this tool will do actually was it will take this thing and it will apply it to surfaces. As you can see, you've got your front right and your front left. So I'm going to apply the front left. And then what you're going to do here is you're going to click on this guy here. First of all, you're going to get your perspective selection tool, and you're going to click on this guy, and you're going to apply it to that surface, just like that. There you have it. Now he's on that side right there. All right. Now you're going to come over here and you're going to change your side, and then you're going to click on this graphic right here. Click on it to select it, drag it in, and you're going to apply it to this surface right here. It's actually a lot of fun. There. And I'm going to just deselect it for 1 second. You'll notice that these things are a little bit different. The sizes are a little bit different. So what I generally do with this is I generally zoom in a little bit and I try to get my selection tool and I try to select this thing and I try to adjust the size of it if I can, so that it's a little bit bigger. It's got to be a little bit bigger here. So you got to try to play with this a little bit to make it a little bit bigger. There's your problem right there. You have to try to make it a little bit bigger, and usually do that by just dragging it forward slightly, and that will make it a little bit bigger. All right. They normally will come right out the same size, but in this case it didn't. Okay, so there you go. So now I'm going to come back in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the view menu. I'm going to go to perspective grid and hide grid, and there I have my pieces. And what I need to do is I need to just move my pieces. This is going to tell me that the grid is going to be manipulated to get that thing in place. And there basically is the side piece. Okay, so if you go to the view menu, fit artboard and window, we basically now have the box, which has been rendered in 3D, and we have the box which has been applied to the 3D grid. Basically both are the same thing. They're just a couple of panels that I created and saved as symbols, just like that. I think you ought to give this a try. It's an awful lot of fun, really, and very valuable, and you'll find yourself using this when you're actually creating your own grid or when you're creating your own package for your packaging project. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to give it a try.